Hello, my name is Professor Shilajitya Rakshit. Follow the Golden 3 Durable Solutions is the name of the module. Outline. According to the UNHRC, a refugee is provided with 3 options or the 3 golden durable solutions for his/her situation. They are voluntary repatriation, local integration and resettlement. 2 objectives. Discuss the 3 durable solutions, understand the impact they have on refugee laws. 3. Introduction. On the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the UN General Assembly unanimously adopted a resolution that recognized June 20th as World Refugee Day. The first universal commemoration of this day was in 2001. After paying tribute to refugee youth in 2003, World Refugee Day 2004 focused on durable solutions. Refugee having fled from one state is faced with what remedies are available to him other in their endeavor to rebuild peace in conflict-ridden zones. The United Nations has arrived at 3 solutions to the refugee problem: voluntary repatriation, local integration and resettlement to a third country in situations where it is impossible for a person to go back home or remain in the host country. UNHCR helps achieve these durable solutions for refugees around the world. Unfortunately, for several million refugees and a greater number of internally displaced people, these solutions are nowhere in sight. 4. Learning outcomes. To discuss the interplay of refugee law and the durable solutions, to have an understanding of the practical implementation of durable solutions. 5. Voluntary repatriation, going back home. The concept of voluntary repatriation is derived from the principle of international human rights instruments and the right to return, which states the right of refugee to return to their country of origin is fully recognized in international law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, established in Article 13, also reinforces the principle that everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his own country. Voluntary repatriation is a process in which, after reviewing all available information about conditions in their country of origin, refugees decide freely return home. This may be an organized or a spontaneous repatriation. In all cases, return must be voluntary. It is promoted as the preferred durable solution both for refugees and for the international community. But certain essential conditions must be met. For millions of refugees around the world, going home remains the strongest hope of finding an end to exile. As the durable solution of choice for the largest number of refugees, voluntary repatriation in safety and dignity requires the full commitment of the country of origin to help reintegrate its own people. It also needs the continuing support of the international community through the crucial post-conflict phase to ensure that those who make the brave decision to go home can rebuild their lives in a stable environment. Conditions for voluntary repatriation. An essential condition for repatriation is that it must be voluntary and should not be caused by push factor. According to UNHCR, an important prerequisite to ensuring the decision to repatriate is voluntary is the absence of measures which push the refugee to repatriate. According to the Repatriation Handbook, refugee repatriation is not voluntary when host country authorities deprive refugees of any real freedom of choice through outright coercion or measures such as, for example, reducing essential services. There must be no threat to phase down basic refugee assistance programs in connection with registration for repatriation. The 1951 Convention on the Status of Refugees refers to the idea of well-founded fear of persecution. It states that such fear, as defined in Article 1, is central to the refugee definition of the Convention. The fact that repatriation must be voluntary implies that the subjective fear should have ceased. Refugee status can cease, however, once meaningful national protection is re-established. The principle of voluntariness is the cornerstone of international protection with respect to the return of refugees. While the issue of voluntary repatriation as such is not addressed in the 1951 Refugee Conventions, it follows directly from the principles of non-refoulement. The involuntary return of refugee would, in practice, amount to refoulement. A person retaining a well-founded fear of persecution is a refugee and cannot be compelled to repatriate. Another necessary condition is that refugees must have neutral, accurate information of conflict country. An exchange of information is an essential component of a successful voluntary repatriation program. The UNHCR has stated that, I quote, "Only an informed decision can be a voluntary decision." UNHCR itself has a key responsibility to provide such information to refugees. Information campaigns are UNHCR's core responsibility and principal mechanism to promote voluntary repatriation and to ensure that refugees' decisions are taken in full knowledge of the facts. Issues affecting voluntary repatriation in spite of repatriation being viewed favorably. There is no agreement on the means of achieving it. Ironically, voluntary repatriation is the most sought after solution, but it is the area in which the international community and individual states have the greatest limitations of mandate, influence, time and resources. The UNHCR normally is limited to 1 year assisting voluntary repatriation and cannot address economic and developmental difficulties in the country of origin that can preclude return. The fear of giving development aid to a persecuting government so that its victims may return is another barrier in helping repatriation. The main reason impairing refugees from repatriating is the continuation in power of the regime that originally caused the exodus. Deliberately attacked by the governments, refugees might only return if they surrendered the characteristics that initially marked them as victims. If that is possible and acceptable, the responsibility of refugee protection lies foremost with states. So too the responsibility to uphold the integrity of refugee resettlement as a tool of protection should be the cornerstone to governmental refugee resettlement programs. It is therefore incumbent on states to pay particular attention to the resettlement of individual refugees with special protection needs. It is also incumbent on states to ensure that refugee resettlements is delivered in accordance with established international practice, and that a concentrated effort is made by all stakeholders to remain true to the principles of protection. Therefore, the resettlement country provides the refugee with legal and physical protection, including access to civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights similar to those enjoyed by nationals. It should allow for refugees to become naturalized citizens. 8. Questioning the impact of durable solutions. It may be necessary to question whether the relative weights assigned to the 3 durable solutions in recent years are wrong or too optimistic. The refugee and development approach has been pushing local settlement as the most available durable solution. This preference has come about through a process of elimination / voluntary repatriation has slowed down. Resettlement is not realistic and not from a record of successes. Stain and Dark, 1985. We need to be cautious about local settlement. If it were easy, a whole new approach to assistance would not be needed to promote it. A durable solution means integration, and most host countries are offering only temporary settlement that could evolve into de facto integration, but temporary settlement could also become rejection and expulsion. Much more attention needs to be paid to incorporating a chance for citizenship into settlement schemes. Without that chance, it may well be that the only real durable solution is a voluntary repatriation followed by resettlement in pluralistic societies as second best. 9. Case study. The Bhutanese refugees in India and Nepal in the early 1990s. Tens of thousands of ethnic Nepalese were arbitrarily deprived of their Bhutanese citizenship. Some were then expelled from Bhutan, while others fled the country to escape from a campaign of arbitrary arrest and detention directed against the ethnic Nepalese. For 16 years, these Bhutanese refugees have languished in 7 refugee camps in Nepal with no resolution to their plight. For the past 16 years, the overwhelming majority of the Bhutanese refugees in the camps in Nepal have vested their hopes in the possibility of returning to their homeland. Refugees have the right under international law to return to their own country, but Bhutan and Nepal instituted a joint verification process to determine which refugees would be able to return. The Bhutanese authorities sought to limit the right of return to a small subsection of the refugees who could prove to be the Bhutanese authorities that they were forcibly expelled from the country. The right to return is not by itself a sufficient condition for the promotion of voluntary repatriation as a durable solution. Repatriation in safety and dignity is feasible only if the country of origin is willing and able to guarantee respect for returnees' human rights. In the case of the Bhutanese refugees in Nepal, such guarantees are lacking. Not only does Bhutan remain unwilling to accept the vast majority of the Bhutanese refugees, but it also continues to discriminate against the remaining ethnic Nepali population in Bhutan. Nepal, as the host country, too has refused to provide refugees with permanent settlement or any extended form of integration into its community. The refugees are stranded in a situation where neither does their country want them back, nor does the host country wish to accept their resettlement in its land. The Human Rights Watch has started recommendations for the Bhutanese, Nepal and Indian government. They include ratifying the 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless persons and the 1961 Convention on the reduction of statelessness. They also include cooperating with the US and other resettlement countries in the resettlement of Bhutanese refugees and respect refugees' right to leave the country. Issue exit permits in a timely way to all refugees who wish to repatriate, choose to accept third country resettlement. To the Indian government, they have recommended India offering to mediate between Bhutan and Nepal to resolve the Bhutanese refugee and statelessness crisis. Recommendations have also been made to various United Nations bodies to continue to press Nepal, Bhutan and India to ratify the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol, the 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless persons and the 1961 Convention on the reduction of statelessness. 2. Consider for refugee status under UNHCR's mandate ethnic Nepalese from Bhutan in India who fled or were expelled from Bhutan for the same reasons as the Bhutanese refugees living in Nepal, to ensure that all refugees' children born in the camps have their births registered and continue to work with the refugees to reduce the incidence of sexual and gender-based violence in the camps. It is worth noting, though, that resettlement efforts were made by USA, Canada, New Zealand and other countries which were fruitful. By 2010, 80,000 refugees have been resettled in different countries around the globe. Thank you.